Well, welcome everyone to another leadership exchange in city management. We've got James Hawthorne here, the interim city administrator for Venus, Texas. So, James, you and I originally met at the TML Small Town Conference several months ago. But I'll hand the microphone over to you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your career journey.
Sure. My name is James Hawthorne, and I've been at the City of Venus here for about 4 or 5 months as the interim city administrator. Um, I come with 37 years of law enforcement experience background, 28 of those with the City of Arlington, where I retired as a police chief, assistant police chief, and 9 years as a police chief over in Cedar Hill at the Cedar Hill ISD. And so, again, 37 years of municipal work, I would say law enforcement work, and 29 years or so in municipal government. And so I know we don't see a lot of people come from the law enforcement side over into to city administration, but there are people out there. There are some out there who absolutely have done it and have done a fantastic job at it.
Hmm. Tell us about, take us to your young adult days, college. Where'd you go to college? What'd you study? And what did career options look like right after that?
I went to college. I'm originally from Fort Worth, a 1977 graduate of O.D. White High School, and went to UTA on a track scholarship, and my track career was over before it even started, really at UTA.
Uh-oh.
And so it forced me to figure out what I wanted to do really in life, and chose to be a journalism major. And so I was a journalism major, and really started my career as a sports reporter for the Arlington Citizen Journal, which was owned by the Fort Worth Star Telegram, covered junior high and some high school football. And that landed me a job at a radio station in Fort Worth, KNOK FM 107.5. And I was the sports director there, covering Dallas Cowboys, Dallas Mavericks, and Texas Rangers, and a whole host of college and high school stuff. And went there into hard news, covering at WBAP Radio in Dallas Fort Worth, home of Hal J and Dick Siegel back in the day. So I was on the air with those guys, and really, um, if you know anything about radio, it doesn't pay a lot of money, and I was tired of being broke, so I was looking for something. Something to do where I could translate the job skills, I guess, that I had learned in journalism,
Hmm.
translate that over to another career field. And I saw a lot of similarities in what I was currently doing, being out in the field, writing police reports, interviewing people. Doing that as a reporter, I saw a lot of the same similarities in a police officer job, although there's some stark differences. But, kind of similar skill sets. And so I chose to apply at the Arlington Police Department. And so I did and worked there for 28 years. Started as a patrol officer and ended as an assistant police chief there, and performed a lot of different jobs: public information officer, hostage negotiation, detective, uh, field operations, assistant chief over patrol operations, and personnel and recruiting, running the police academy. So a lot of different things that I did at the police department that really gave me a lot of insight into how things operate. The last assignment I had was a community support bureau, and in the community support bureau, we worked with a lot of nonprofits, or just a lot of agencies, really, churches and people who had capacity that we didn't have in the police department to try to address crime issues in a different way by empowering communities and community involvement and
Hmm.
seeing how we could involve those or leverage those resources into assisting communities in ways that would reduce crime or lower crime and just help us have a better relationship with communities overall. And so I really enjoyed that assignment. And that was the last assignment I had when I was at the police department. So that's a little bit about my background, I guess, you know.
Nice. James, I didn't know about the track piece. That's what were your distances
I was
that you ran?
I ran the 400 hurdles
Oh, wow.
and the mile relay. And so again, I got hurt really before the track season began, and couldn't get a clearance from the doctor to come back and participate. And so uh, that was pretty much the end of my career. It ended before it got started. Good.
Well, so what you run in the mile relay, it was you would run a 400 meters basically.
Yes,
Okay.
400 meters.
What was your time? What do you remember your 400-meter being?
I ran, I think I ran 147, and the rest of them were 48s. You know, certainly
Wow.
that wasn't a blazing speed by any imagination at the college level. But, you know, again, I was a freshman. And so, you
Yeah.
know, I may have
Yeah,
improved upon those times by the time I got to be a senior,
for sure.
if I kept running. But that just wasn't in the cards for me.
Wait, what college was it?
UTA.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
that was
awesome.
back in the day when I went to UTA. They didn't have a real track. We ran on a cinder track, and we ran all of our track meets over at Lamar High School. So we had the
Okay.
long spikes, and I may be aging myself somewhat here, but you know, it
Now,
was back in the day.
did you go to school in a car or was it horse and buggy?
I traded in the horse and buggy and got a
Okay.
car.
Okay. Nice. Nice. Well, James, so I want to go back to your early days at the Arlington Police Department. What was your first supervisor role there?
My first supervisor role was a patrol sergeant. I was in the crime prevention unit as an officer, and I got promoted to sergeant. And I went to midnights in what was considered north side of town. And that was a pretty eye-opening experience being a supervisor. And the first time you step into that role, it's a little lonely climbing out on that bench, on that tree limb, I guess, if you will, and having to make decisions that you know will impact the city and you know affect how people view the police department. And then you're responsible for that decision. You're the decision maker in that moment, and you're responsible for that decision. And so initially, that's a little bit uncomfortable, but you learn that with responsibility, you know, comes the responsibility to educate yourself and make sure that you're making right decisions and doing the right thing for everybody. But initially, you know, it's a little unsettling and a little uncomfortable because you go from one day asking your supervisor what you should do, and now the next day, people are asking you how to handle calls. And so it was um, it was a little undaunting, I would say, right at first. But I learned to treat everybody with respect. And, you know, it was really the first time that I really realized that as a supervisor, I'm supervising and I'm out there representing everybody. So
Okay.
not just the people who I liked, you know, before when I was an officer, you know, I still had to represent and make good decisions for people who sometimes I didn't really get along with that well. But I had you know, it was my first time experiencing that and learning how to you know put my arms around that, and that was really kind of eye opening for me, and really forced me to decide if I really wanted, you know, to be in supervision and how I viewed
Okay.
myself in supervision. And the one thing that you learn real quick when you're a supervisor, you don't really see yourself any differently, but other people see you differently. So you really have to be careful how you say things, how you carry yourself, how you talk to other people, and how they may interpret what you're saying. And so it was my first venture into learning how to be careful with my words and understanding that other people may have different interpretations of what I'm saying, and then learning when to say it, who to say it to, and things like that. So uh, that's what I recall first being a supervisor, understanding that although I didn't see myself any differently, I was still James, still the same guy, but other people saw me differently. And so I had to be cautious and careful about how I carried myself and the things that I said.
The way you're describing that, it sounds like you recognize that and embrace that pretty quickly. Is that accurate, or did you bump your head quite a bit to get to that place?
I think I bumped my head a couple of times, but I did pick up on that very quickly. Um, and there were things that I would say, and people in the past, people didn't really pay much attention to what I said, right? But now everybody was paying attention to the things that I said. And so I had to really be careful about how I said it, because then I found myself sometimes in conversations with people and people recounting things that I said, or the way that I looked at them, um, things that I just didn't really pay attention to before. And so had to become very cognizant of that, because again, as I said, I didn't see myself any differently, but I had to understand that people saw me differently. So now I'm a supervisor. And so now I have to be cognizant about how I carry myself, the kind of conversations that was having with people. And I learned quickly, if I was having a meeting with somebody, a private conversation, there are times that it's appropriate to close the door. There are times that I should leave the door open. And so it was my first learning experience, if you will, with understanding the dynamics there and how people can perceive things. And some things could be very innocent, but you have to be cognizant of how you presented yourself or how you set yourself, your presentation, if you will, because it could be perceived differently by other people.
Um, you know, I could see someone saying, well, it's not fair that a leader's actions and words and even nonverbal demeanor, it's not fair that they have greater consequences, that you're more under a microscope. What would you say to that complaint?
Well, going back to an old cartoon, you knew the job was dangerous when you took it, right? You know, and so, and what I mean by that, you accept that when you step into that role, you understand it. And maybe if you don't quite understand it initially, but your experiences that you go through help you to understand that you're in that type of position, like it or not. But it just comes with the territory, and so you learn to embrace that. You learn how to do it well as a matter of survival, your own survival. But if you're really serious about the position that you're in and you really want to make a difference, those are the things that just come with it. And so you embrace those things, learn how to maneuver in a new environment, if you will, and embrace that and learn how to use it to your benefit, because at the end of the
What?
day, you're still trying to serve the greater good. And
Okay.
before, it's all about yourself. But when you step into a leadership role, now you're responsible for other people and take on the responsibility of moving the organization in a way that you can influence it positively, through the sphere or chain of command that you have. So I think I embraced it early on. I didn't quite understand it the first few weeks or so that I was in that position, but I embraced it pretty early on, and encouraged other people to also embrace that, because we had an opportunity to impact the organization in ways that we didn't have before through our leadership.
Nice. What have you seen over your career where leaders that, they step into that leadership role, but they're not able to wrap their arms around what you're just describing, that the cost that comes with leadership, that self-denial, that self-sacrifice that comes with leadership. What have you seen when you've seen leaders not do that well? What is it that they've tripped up on? What's gotten in their way of really embracing that?
I think I'll say just going back to college and being a liberal arts major, majoring in journalism. One of the things that make you effective in a position is your ability to be a good communicator, a person who has communication skills in terms of being able to articulate your thoughts, but being a good listener and understanding sometimes that things that people are saying, sometimes you have to kind of read between the lines because there could be other dynamics or other things at play. And so, it forces you to be a good listener. It forces you to have sharpen your communication skills. And so I think the people who don't do well in that regard are not effective at communicating their vision, communicating the goals and of the agency where you're working, and helping people connect the dots to what they're doing and how that's important to the mission. Because I think people come to work every day. They want to do a good job. I don't think there are very many people that come to work every day that want to do a bad job. They want to come to work and they want to work hard. They want to feel like that their work has meaning, that they're doing something that maybe serves a greater purpose, and that we as supervisors recognize that and then reward them, affirm what they're doing. And I think that makes for a better work environment. And so I think, going back to what you said, being a liberal arts major, and that's something that they drill into our heads, communication, I think has helped me tremendously in the positions that I've been in, because I recognize the importance of effective communication,
Hmm.
not only verbally, but writing as well,
Hmm. Hmm.
and being able to translate those things into thought on paper, and understanding that there's sometimes, those things don't translate well on paper. And there are times where you have to bring people in and have a conversation. And that's more
Okay.
impactful, more meaningful than, just a note or email. And so, I think those are the things that matter. People, for the most part, they know their jobs. They go through the screening process, and we think they have the technical skills to do the job, but it's managing people, managing personalities, managing relationships, internally and externally, so that people feel that when they feel motivated and want to come to work and do the work because uh, they want to work for you, as opposed to working in fear.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
I think that makes it a more productive work environment. And I think being a liberal arts major and working in the field of journalism, having to talk to people and build relationships kind of helped to me in my career as I moved up the ladder, and managing other people in higher up positions and having more people up under me, and the communication pieces being more critical and more important.
Well, on that note, thinking about your last role with Arlington Police, that community role, I think about something I've actually been reading about recently to add to my own toolbox as a consultant is helping leaders navigate politics. And I'm gonna for short, I'm gonna define politics as um, power relationships. Power relationships. We could debate whether that's a good way to describe it, but for now, let's just say that's what it is. So as you thought about that community work, you were navigating the politics of the community. Different people had various levels of power and influence. let's say a web of power and influence. You had to navigate that web without, you know, burning the place down and causing everybody to get into a war. What are some tips you would give city leaders? Because every city leader's got to navigate the politics of the community.
I think, you know, recognizing who the players are and having them understand that you recognize, who they are or who the chess pieces are on the board, right? And then I think for me anyway, I'll just say for me, I try to treat everybody the same. Whether you're a high up person who has a lot of influence in the city, or whether or not you're a person who barely, comes into contact with the city and doesn't have very much influence at all. When you come into contact with us, uh, you should be feel everybody should be treated the same, regardless
Mm-hmm.
of the politics, regardless of their standing in the community. Everybody is important. And it's important, I feel, that we treat everybody the same. And when I say the same, give everybody the same high touch. Our goal is to, when people encounter us, um, that they leave that encounter and we've over delivered. We
Nice.
exceeded their expectations. And whether we hit that goal or not every time, that should be what we're striving for, to exceed expectations every time that we come into contact with anybody. So whether or not they are higher up in the hierarchy of the city, or they are lower down in the socioeconomic, or however you want to describe it, the way that we interact and deal with them, I think should be the same. And when they walk through that door, they should get the same level of service as anybody else. Not
Nice.
preferential treatment because they're at a higher hierarchy, and not any less treatment because they're at a lower scale. But we're here for we're the city, we're the government, we're the city government, and we should treat everybody with the same dignity, the same respect, and everybody should feel like when they come through that door, that we are a part of the community. It's really a relationship and a partnership that we have with the community, and everybody should feel like they have equal footing in terms of
Nice.
their voice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So to summarize that, I'd say one of the skills, one of the approaches that has served you well in navigating political environments is you yourself being a person of character and integrity and treating each person with respect and value. That's
Yes.
that's well said. That's never going to you'll always be able to lay your head down at night peacefully when you conduct yourself that way.
Absolutely. You hit upon a piece that I implied, but yes. I mean, we have to have integrity, and people have to feel that, right? And people have to feel like that when they walk through the door, regardless even if they don't like the answer, right? But they felt like that they were heard and that we treated them fairly. And they leave and say, well, it's not what I really wanted to hear, but they were fair, and they
Mhm.
feel that way when they leave the door. So that's what we strive for, and that's what I push here, is that everybody should leave the encounter with us feeling like that they were heard, that they were treated fairly, and they may not like the answer, but they won't walk out the door and say that we've treated them unfairly.
Mhm, mhm. So I'm jumping ahead to a question, and you're doing great, James. I know that I'm going off script with some of these questions, but you're doing good. But that was part of the script. I told you I'd go off script, right?
Well, I
So
tell you, my 15 years or so as a public information officer, I can't tell you how many times the reporters went off script.
right. So um 27 or 28 years at Arlington, and then you were at the Cedar Hill ISD, right? After that?
Yes, 9 years as their police chief.
Yeah. So we don't have to add it all up. but you've been at this work stuff for a while now. Um,
You can say it. I'm old. You can say it.
and we'll talk about your interim city administrator role here in a second, but what James, I think anybody listening to this interview or who is going to listen to it, because we're recording it and we'll send it out, um, it's obvious that you still have a very vibrant, optimistic demeanor. Um, that's not common for people that have been in the workforce, especially in leadership and in public service for 30, 40 years. What what has enabled you to stay positive and to stay optimistic rather than rigid, grumpy, skeptical?
Uh, it may be when I think about responding to your question, here are the thoughts that roll through my mind. We live in a time where the politics are so polarizing, and you have to be on one side or the other, and there's no. It's just polarized. It's not conducive. It's not healthy, in my opinion. And but when I think about my day-to-day interactions with people, I don't necessarily see that polarization in the day-to-day stuff that I do in my day-to-day interactions. What I really see is people that look a lot differently than me, people who think differently than me, and people who maybe worship differently than I do. And none of that really matters when we sitting down at the table talking about the business of the city and how we're going to provide a level of service or the services that we provide to that individual. None of those things don't really matter at that particular point in time. And then when I'm out in the community talking to people on a day-to-day basis, that's just not what I see. It's what I see on television. It's what I hear on the radio. It's what I see in social media, because you have these echo chambers that, people tend to stay within. But when I'm out just doing the business that I do, that's not what I see, day to day. So that's where I draw my energy from, because
Okay.
that's my reality.
Hmm.
And my reality is not the um the TV talk shows and all of the other stuff that drives that kind of negativity, in my opinion. It's the day-to-day interactions that I see with people who want their lives improved. They want us to do the things that we do to help the quality of lives of the people who live in our cities, and I feel we have a responsibility to do that. And the times that we do it and we do it successfully, and we do it again and we do it again, that's where I draw my inspiration from, and my positivity. And I try to drill that into my staff, not focusing on the many, many issues that we have. And we have a lot of issues that we're trying to work
Hmm.
through, but we have a lot of victories. And so we celebrate the small victories, we celebrate the big victories, and we try to build momentum around those things that are positive, and understand that we may not get there overnight, but they're baby steps, and we see that we're making progress, and we celebrate the little things as well as the big things. And that, to me, keeps my momentum going, because it makes me feel like that I'm actually making a difference, and I'm making a difference in the job that I'm doing. And
Hmm.
so that's kind of how I keep my positivity and my worldview, I guess, if you will. And with anybody that knows me will tell you I'm a people person anyway. And
Hmm.
so and maybe that's a skill that everybody doesn't have. You can't teach that to everybody. That's something that you just gotta have within you,
Hmm.
um, to some degree.
Hmm.
So that's how I remain positive, because I do feel like on the day-to-day stuff that we do, we are making a difference. And maybe everybody doesn't feel it all at once or don't recognize it, but I certainly have the metrics to or the receipts, as they would say these days,
Right, right, right.
to prove that.
Okay. let's let me skip to your consulting work. So tell us a little bit about the consulting role you had and kind of still do have.
I'm fortunate that to work for the T. Bowman Group, Dr. Theron Bowman, who's been around the country, around the world, really, doing consulting work for a number of entities, whether it be governments, municipalities, police departments. Fortunate to have had him as a mentor and a teacher and a lifelong friend in the work that he does. And he gave me an opportunity to step into his company and handed me some pretty heavy assignments early on, I think, and I was able to um, successfully complete those and do good work. And so um, that has opened my eyes a lot. You know,
Hmm.
when you work with different cities or work with different organizations and see some of the complexities and some of the issues that are going on within those areas, and then stepping in and helping them navigate those uh, helps me a lot because here I recognize some of the same issues, and everybody has issues. You know, there's no city or institution out there that doesn't have issues, right? So just having my eyes open to some of the warning signs, if you will, that I see early on because of my work with the consulting company and helping advise them helps me in this role as well
Hmm.
because I'm faced with some of the same issues, the same problems, and the solutions are all the same. And so it's a lot of great work that the Bowman Group is doing. And I'm able to ride their coattail, if you will, and has helped me in ways that have enabled me to have doors open for me, and I've benefited from that work and able to bring what I've learned in that environment to this present job that I'm doing now.
What kind of consulting work were you doing with them? Like when you took on one of these projects or two, what were you tasked with? What was the institution looking to you to help with?
There were investigations that they wanted done. Maybe it was sometimes into individuals. Maybe it was sometimes how can we more effectively make our work environment be more productive? Looking at just organizationally, how are we structured? You know, how can we structure in a manner that makes us more efficient and make us produce our work better? And then, the leadership. You know, how do we dive down into an organization and develop leaders? What does that look like? What are the things that we have to do in order to develop better leaders? And so, just being able to do that, been involved with hiring processes, promotional processes, identifying leaders through those types of processes. You know, that's some of the work that I was doing with them, and some
Hmm.
of the things that, again, as I said earlier, have helped me into this job. And so it's um, it's valuable work that you guys do
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
this consultant role, and it's work that is very meaningful and helps organizations get on a straight path. And
Hmm.
and so I'm taking some of the tools, if you will, that I've learned there and trying to apply those in my own organization um, to help with things that I think will help put us on a better path than we're currently on.
So tell us about your current role. Tell us about Venus.
Venus is a small town in Texas, like so many of us are.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think population here is somewhere between 8,000 to 9,000 people. And it's a growing community. We got major highways that are about to, come through the town. We have lots of land, if you will, and people want to take advantage of some of the growth that's coming through. And so our challenge, our struggle right now is making sure that we have the infrastructure in place to allow for that growth and that development to happen. And then we
Okay.
want to be strategic about that growth so that it matches the vision of what our city council wants and what the residents want here in the town. So we have to be strategic about the growth so that it matches our vision. But there are lots of opportunity for those types of growth to happen here. And so we're just trying to lay out the welcome mat or get it ready, right? So that people can come and take advantage of the many opportunities here that we have. And so it's a small town and it has a small town feel. And there's a lot of things to like about that. And so, it's just I feel like it's a good place to be. I'm lucky to have the support of the city council, and
Mhm.
so there's a lot that goes on with trying to manage the relationship, between the city and the council, and making sure we're doing all the things that help them achieve the vision that they've set for the city. And so, communication there is very important. And the way that we communicate, how we communicate, and how responsive we are to council, but just how responsive we are to all citizens,
Mhm.
determines, whether or not we're going to be really successful or not. And so, uh, again, I'm reminded often by some of my friends that, Venus is just one of several thousand small towns, and the small towns are really what represent most of the state of Texas.
Right, right, right. So, how have you, one of the things as I work in the city management space, a concept that's really been brought up over the last 5 years is mental health. What in your career, what have you done by way of your own mental health, stress management? Yeah.
Um, I'll go back to when I started as a police officer. One
Hmm.
of the things that was told to me uh, was that don't make the mistake of the only people that you interact with, the only people that you hang out with are other cops. Because you get into that circle, that cycle, and then you see the world from one lane or one perspective or one point of view. And
Okay.
so I've always, I mean, always um, had friends and associations with people. I involved myself with lots of other things outside of the police department because the police department is only one sliver and one slice of life. And so, I try to have friends everywhere and involve myself in things other than law enforcement activities.
Hmm.
Um, and so that to me, has helped a lot in terms of maintaining, my sanity and just helping with my own mental health, just being involved with other things outside of the work. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, I at one time I started a 501(c)(3 in Arlington, and I was doing film festivals. I did a film festival in Arlington for 5 years or so. Um, so, and I say that just as an example of things that I've done to have other interests outside of law enforcement, outside of city work,
Hmm.
because I think that's healthy.
Yeah.
And you should have friendships with people outside of law enforcement, outside of city work, people who bring, the different perspectives of the color of life, you know, uh, to you full face, right? And so that's what I try to do. I try not to just bury myself with only having friends in one particular genre, you know,
Nice.
one particular section, but I have a host of friends that do a lot of different things, uh, and that's kind of the way that I've lived my life really early on because when I was even going back to elementary school, I went to school in one neighborhood, but I lived in another. And so during the day, I'm at work with I'm at school with my friends at there, and then I go back to a different neighborhood on another side of town. And so I knew people from all over the community, the
Hmm.
city. And so just I don't and now that I think about it, growing up that way, it just kind of I've replicated that just over and over again, just not having friends in one particular circle, but having friends in various circles. And so that helps me maintain my mental health. And then, being involved with your family and doing family things and not just
Hmm.
so wrapped up in work. Um, just letting loose and doing things that help you keep the perspective on what's really important. Because at the end of
Nice.
the day, uh, nobody will remember that I was the police chief over in Cedar Hill or that I even worked at the Arlington Police Department, right? Um, they won't even know who I am over there. But my family, you know,
Hmm.
that's my family. And so
Hmm.
I try to make sure that and people that know me know that I try to make sure that I do a lot and keep my family time and very involved in those things, um, as well as church. So I have my faith too that helps sustain me through the low times and the high times. And so those things help me with my mental health. And I do think it's important if you're in the role of being a leader in the workplace, understanding when because I come from a profession where it was frowned upon to want to have help or reach out to have help. And of
Okay.
course, that mindset in law enforcement has changed a lot now, recognizing that it's okay to ask for help and get help.
Hmm.
And so that was frowned upon and not acted upon very much in the law enforcement community. But again, we've done a 180 with that regard and helping people understand it's okay to ask for help. It's okay not to be okay. And as a supervisor, as leaders in the organizations, we have to make pathways for them to reach out and not make it difficult, give them safe space to feel like that they can articulate and reach out and have those types of conversations, and that we as a community, whether it's a work community or the community that we live in, we provide space and opportunities, and that's not something that's frowned upon, but encouraged.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
That's good, James. That's good. Well, we're knocking on our door of bringing this to a close. I'll end with one question. You know, we've got a few people here attending, and more people will see this on the recording. Um, what encouragement would you give to a city leader, whether they're a department director, assistant city manager, kind of that key senior leadership role? What encouragement would you have for them?
Um, I think as a leader, the higher you go up, the more more influence that you have. And so, if you're doing things right and you're doing things in a positive way and you have the right attitude, the higher you go up, you have the opportunity to influence more people, um, and to see your vision come to life before your very eyes because you have the ability to control that to some extent.
Hmm.
And so that would be my encouragement. I have goals, I have things that I would like to accomplish here in the job I'm in now. And so if you are climbing, I guess, if you will, climbing the ladder and are trying to, don't chase a title. I would say that. Don't chase, it's about the work and it's about how you feel like that you're having an impact in the job and being successful in the work that you're doing. The other stuff will take care of itself. It will come, right? If you're focused on what you're doing and trying to be the best at what you're doing, the other stuff, trust me, it will happen. Nobody. I'll be honest. This was not on my bingo card, right? sitting in a city
Right,
manager seat,
right,
right?
right.
Never thought in a million years that something like this would happen, and I wasn't looking for it, right? I'm certainly glad that I'm in the role, and I'm appreciative of being in the role, and I'm loving what I'm doing, but I never thought that that would happen, and so I'm saying that, to somebody that's coming up, you never know what opportunities out there will avail themselves to you. I wasn't chasing this job. I wasn't chasing this title. It happened
Hmm.
because of the work that I did. And so, because of the work that you do, regardless of where you are in the organizations, at some point, somebody may see that, somebody may value that, and a door open that you don't see coming from anywhere because of the work that you do, the reputation that you have, and the character that people see in you, well, can open doors that you don't envision for yourself. And so, my advice would be not chase the title, but just do the work, and the other stuff will happen.
I like that. A lot of high performers, they talk about you can't fixate on a result or an outcome. You've got to learn to love the work, love the quote unquote
Yes.
boring work
Yeah.
day in and day out. And that's what brings results.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead, James. Go ahead.
Oh no, when you said that, I just thought about a conversation I had. I had a friend of mine come visit me the other day. He had been in city work for 30 years or more. And he said, I'm just so uh, tickled at listening to you talk about mundane city work and how excited you are about it. And I got tickled by his comment. I said, well, hey, this is it's all new, and I'm embracing it and I'm loving it.
Good. Well, James, thank you for your time. I'm gonna open up the question in a second, but so I don't forget, I just want to tell you thank you for your time, for sharing your story. There's a thousand other questions I'd love to ask. Maybe we can do a part two one day, or even just a part two, me and you personally. Um, Congratulations on a great career, and thank you for all the work that you've done and the work you're still doing. So thank you for being on this today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yes, sir. So we've got 6 or 7 minutes left here. Anybody want to ask a question? You can unmute yourself and ask. You can send it through the chat. Any questions for James? Angie said, "Thank you for everything you do for all of us." I don't know if you know Angie.
Thank you. Yes, I know Angie. Thank you. I will say something. I know people think that, coming through the ranks or rising through the ranks of the city through a law enforcement route is maybe viewed as unconventional.
Right, right.
I don't really see it that way.
Okay.
Maybe people come through maybe neighborhood services, or they worked at the water department, or they worked with libraries and moved up into city management. And the police department is just another branch, just
Mhm,
like those other branches of the city are, right? So we
mhm.
learn municipal operations. We learn how to work with other city departments because we certainly have to bring in other city departments to help us with issues that we have in the community. And so I may not have come through another branch of government, but I came through government,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so
Yep.
I view that as the same. So I think somebody was trying to ask a question. I thought I heard somebody.
We'll give it another minute or two. And this is normal, James. Most people are pretty quiet when it comes to the Q&A. Well, there are no questions. Oh, here we go. Uh, oh, Robert's got to run. Okay. Well, James, it was great catching up with you. Um, Hope you have a good rest of your day, and we will talk again soon.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me.